Here's a question for you. Why do successful small business owners burn out? That's the question for today. Welcome to Huddle for Success podcast, where we talk about mindset, wealth, building leadership, and the plays that will help you move towards clarity. Today, Mark and I are going to talk about why successful small business owners quietly deal with, but rarely admit out loud that they're burned out. With that being said, let's huddle up. Good morning.
Good morning, Dwayne. Man, what a great topic this is going to be.
Yeah, it is. It's we were reading something the other day that talked about successful business owners burning out, feeling frustrated, and I was kind of surprised that it was successful people that had this issue, ones that have built a real business, one that have been successful in their life, ones that have, they look, everything looks great on the outside, but inside they're saying to themselves, is this really what I've worked so hard for? And you would think that it would be new people just getting into the business of dealing with, one, a new business, and two, maybe it's new for them to where they've never had a business before. And so I know that you've always said, as a business owner on your end, where you were in the retail business, and you know it's a seasonal business. The suntan business is a seasonal business. I can't imagine in the summertime it's busy. um I guess people that can't go, I guess people that can't go
It,
to the beach all the time, need to maintain that golden tan. But I would suspect that it becomes a little frustrating.
yeah, yeah. And I was surprised too, because I would have thought it would have been the business owners that were struggling, like you said, either newbies or people that were struggling that would be the ones that would be burned out. But no,
Mhm.
the stats showed that it was the successful people. That was surprising.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me ask you a question. Why do you think successful small business owners are especially vulnerable to burnout?
Well, I will tell you that, being in a seasonal business, I did after 20 some years, I did feel a bit burned out. I, we dealt with the same cycles over and over and over again. Looking back, I think it was more that the person that I was when I was building, I had to do everything. I was the marketing department. I was the sales department. I was the problem solver. I put out all the fires. I was the HR department. I was the janitor. I did everything. And you build it and you grow it and you get it to a certain level, and that certain level of success matches the identity that you have of yourself. And I knew I could build to a certain level, and then it just stopped growing. And I think it was because I stopped growing.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I just need to take a break. And I think that's what happened. And, a lot of owners, they're winning according to the scorecard, their balance sheet, their financial statement. But, sometimes you just lose that sense of peace that you have, the sense of reward. The revenue's great, but it's the rest of your life sometimes that just kind of bogs you down and says, so is this really it? So you've dealt with a lot of people. You sat across the table from them, and what did you see as signs that business owners, that they're not just busy, they were actually just burned out?
I can tell you for myself that even though I was fortunate enough, so I worked for two different companies for 30 years. And so I was an independent contractor. And even though I loved what I did, I was still a business owner.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes you lose the excitement because it's the repetition every single day. My line of business, it was great because, there was no consistency. It was always changing. However, the routine was still the same. And it's like, you know, every single Thursday morning going to the airport and dealing with traffic and of driving from where I live to the airport, an hour away, and dealing with inside the airport of the hustle and the bustle. And now you got a delay, and then you get on a flight and you're flying for 3.5, 4 hours, and just delay after delay, and then you go to so all that became really you lose excitement fast. And I have friends that say, man, how in the world were you able to do it for so long? I go on vacation and I can't stand to travel. You did it for 30 years. And so it's, I think that excitement goes away, but being able to help people was fun. I think that people get set in with fatigue. Um, their little problems become huge problems. That's what I would hear. Oh, well, I have employee issues, or I have, for some reason our product isn't turning out the way that it needs to be or that we want it to be. And now there's customer issues. And so I think that if you're doing something for so long, people get in their head of, just like I said earlier, wow, is this it? I mean, is this it? And so I think that we do a really good job at talking about how to reinvent yourself and how to keep that clear mind and what people really need to do about evolving to make things a little bit more interesting, more exciting at the workplace. And I think that comes along with doing evaluations on your people,
Yeah.
because listen, your employees are the same. They're probably feeling the same thing. They're fatigued, they're working 9 to 5, and maybe somebody has learned a bunch to where they would be better off in a different position. And that changes things up within the workplace. And so I know if you're hearing this, if you're listening and you're a business owner and that kind of sounds, well, I don't know if I want to change somebody from this position to that position because that's why we brought them on. Doesn't mean that's where they need to be. Just because you hired somebody there, maybe they have more of a heart for your business and would be better suited in a different position. So I think that all has that can create more excitement and different direction for business. What's your thought about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, you said it when you ask yourself, man, is this it? That question kind of tells you that you're burned out. And it's you do lose the when you are burned out, you lose that creativity. You stop asking, hey, how can I advance somebody to a position that maybe they're better suited for? Even
Yeah.
though even though they started out in one position, everybody, the human being wants to grow. We all want to grow. And so keeping somebody in that same spot over and over again, that will lead to burnout.
Yeah, no question. So you have had a team for years and years and years for people that worked for you. So how does burnout affect the way a business owner leads their team? How did you deal with that? How did you manage that?
Well, it can affect you in a lot of different ways. I mean, you burn out, you can become bored, you become detached into where you just don't you kind of walk away and people wonder where you are. I mean, that could be one way. Or maybe you could become frustrated. I there were times when I know I became frustrated. I did eventually hire a director of operations because I knew I needed to step back and I needed to work on different things first, but even that creates other issues. And so frustration can happen. And if you get frustrated, everybody in the company feels it if you're the leader. You know, the emotion, the paradigm of the company, the habits and the beliefs filter down from the top, and they also filter up from the bottom. Uh, I I had a brother-in-law who was a headhunter once. He told me, man, at one point in time back in the 90s, if somebody worked for General Electric, man, you wanted to hire them because they had such a great training program. Everybody knew the same. So, but it was all because of the paradigm. It was all because of the culture of the company. And if you're a leader that's burned out, your culture is going to get burned out. Everybody in your company is going to feel what you feel. So,
Mhm.
yeah, why do you think, Dwayne, why do you think so many owners, keep pushing through burnout and instead of stopping, pausing and trying to figure out how to fix it?
I think that they look at it as I built this by grinding and working so hard, grinding and grinding and grinding, and by the same mindset that has helped them start, um, may also be the same mindset that helps them scale their business. You know, I would say that their pride is involved. It's hard for them to admit that um, they're tired when someone else thinks they should be really successful, and owners may feel guilty saying they're burned out because they know others would love to be in their position. They would love to have this problem as a business owner. I
Yeah.
mean, everybody says, "Oh, I want to be a business owner," until you are. And then you realize, okay, all the responsibilities I have and the accountability, and there's no calling in on days that you're sick. And until that happens, you're like, man, I don't want all this responsibility. And so I think they just push through it, you know?
Yeah, it's funny because you said that, it brought to mind. It's like I used to have a couple buddies and we all own small businesses, and we said, yeah, owning your small business is fantastic. You can set your own hours as long as you're willing to work every hour of every day.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. So let me ask you, what role does clarity play in helping a business owner move out of their burnout?
Well, you know, clarity solves a lot of problems, and the first way you get clarity is you got to assess where you are, and then you got to figure out why you got there. That we did a workshop, and they were the first two A's: assessment and awareness. You've got to become aware of where you are and how you got there. Burnout often comes from treating everything like it's a five alarm fire, and you can't do that. You've got to take a step back. You've got to take a look. Things are not always going to be a problem. They're not.
Yeah.
They
Hmm.
might seem like it at first, but if you can take a breath and take a look, when you become clear about what it is that you want in your life and what you want out of your company, man, everything else, what to do next becomes natural. You know what to do next. You become a stronger leader. You become more profitable because things start working better. You know,
No
without clar-
question.
yeah, without clarity, you know, you just keep running the same play over and over and over again if you don't take a pause to take a look at where you are and where you want to be. So, yeah. So, question for you is, how can a successful business owner, you know, how can they start getting their energy back without blowing up their business or just completely walking away from what they built and they worked so hard to build?
I think they need to start assessing where they really are and, how they got there. I think it starts with their people, like I said earlier, the systems, the cash flow, the lack of due diligence, uh, unclear goals. An owner believes that they must control everything, and that's it's their business, and by God, I'll do it the way I want to. And sometimes, again, like I said, you have people that are in a position that really take their business to heart, and there are a lot of people that do work 9 to 5, that's what they're called to do, but yet they bring that heart every single day with them. So as a business owner, even though you can have the final say, I think a lot of business owners really don't listen to the people that are in the trenches. And I would say try and change that because we all have something to learn. We have a VA and we tell her all the time, listen, we accept the pushback. We accept, what your feeling is. of how you feel. Doesn't mean that we'll do it, but at least we have an open mind of saying, hey, somebody is able to see something that we don't, and we can make note to that. So I think that's always helpful. The owner does not have, they don't have to quit. They don't have to sell their business. They don't have to disappear. Sometimes the first step is simply changing their position on the field. They may have to move in a different role, and I think I'm just repeating myself there, but I think that's important. I just got finished saying that, and small changes matters. Better boundaries, clear priorities, fewer distractions, stronger due diligence, and schedule a time to think instead of just reacting.
Yeah.
I think you need to set aside some time. If you need to readjust your business, then I think you need to put some aside time, not during work time of what I need to do now as a knee-jerk reaction, but set aside some time and saying, okay, I really need to focus on this, but I'm going to set aside certain time of how to rebuild my business. And I think that comes all into decision making and prioritizing, and not try and migrate all that together.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So last question, Mark, what would you say to the business owner who says, I can't slow down right now? We finally are picking up a little bit, and too many people are depending on me, and I don't have a minute to slow down.
Well, when you say that to yourself, that's probably exactly the time that you do need to slow down.
Yeah.
Because if you're running crazy helter skelter all over the place, you can't think clearly. It's like in sports. That's when you call a timeout. You got to take a timeout and regroup and take a breath, calm down, look at the situation, and come up with the next play that's probably smarter than if you just kept running and doing the same thing over and over again. You know, best players come out of the game every now and then when they, coach sees that they're struggling a little bit because they're running helter skelter. They can't. You've got to take a break. You've got to pause to get clarity. You've got to pause to get clarity. You can't just keep running and running and running. You'll that is when burnout really happens. So, slowing down doesn't mean that you're stopping. That a lot of small business owners I know, they work really hard. They are A-type players. They've got to be doing something all the time. They understand that action is really important, but sometimes the best action to take is to pause and plan, right?
Yeah,
I
no,
mean, yeah.
no question. I'll leave this here for today's message, and that is, burnout doesn't mean that you're failing.
No.
So quit feeling like, hey, I'm failing. I think that, go back and listen to what we were talking about of creating more clarity and better systems and stronger leaderships and a healthier mindset, and allocating time to when you have to assess your business, and look at the people around you that are committed, that are there every single day. Mark and I, with our students, we do an assessment form, a personal assessment, growth scorecard, and a clarity diagnostic scorecard. Because if we were just to have a conversation with all of our coaching students, but didn't write anything down and didn't measure it, well, we would be doing everybody a disservice, because we would just be talking about whatever. And so when we do these assessment cards, it really allows us to drill in on that person's, their situation, their needs, what they need help with. And so we can go back every quarter and show where their real growth is. And so I think you can do that too as a business owner. If maybe you've never done that, but think about it. Think about how you can go back and start assessing different departments or different different tasks that need to be done, and just take an audit of that and see how you're doing things and what you would like to change. So listen, we appreciate you, the listener, tuning in each and every Monday for a new episode. Also join us every Wednesday and Friday as we do our Huddle Up session. That's 3 to 5 minute, just quick mindful thought. Like, share, leave a comment, and if you know that this would help somebody, pass it on. We'd love to hear that. And also, if you have a topic that you would like for us to talk about, please share. We'd love to hear it. And so, with that being said, stay huddled up, and we'll see you on the next episode of Huddle for Success. Thanks so much.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Huddle for Success. If you found it helpful and want to support others on their journey, share this podcast, leave us a rating, and drop your thoughts in the comments. We'll see you next week on Huddle for Success. Stay huddled up.